Australia's financial markets are more and more recognizing cryptocurrencies as well as ETFs on the way, while big companies like FTX US and Crypto.com are entering the futures market. We're going to be having a look at all of these and more, so stay tuned. And of course, we'll be looking at the price action as well. Hey, welcome back to Crypto Life Inc., where we're living the crypto life, looking at the news so you don't have to. And I'm coming at you with an earlier weekly update, just because I'm having my wisdom teeth removed tomorrow. And that's not going to be fun looking at my puffy face, nor with me in pain looking at the charts, delirious of whatever they give me on the operating table. Anyway, let's move on to the exciting news that's happening very, very soon, which is that Australia is launching its first Bitcoin and Ethereum spot ETF, much unlike the American futures ETF, but much alike the Canadian spot ETF. Now, what we've noticed is whenever a new ETF from a large country with lots of wealth comes out, that the price actually does tank a few weeks after that does happen. So in keeping this in mind, this ETF is to be released months away, so this is just a warning for the months ahead that whenever this is released, that will not be good for price action, and in any case, it will not be good for the short term. So next is an announcement from basically. There's just a look at CME, which is a futures trading exchange, and having a look at other exchanges, FTX being one of them, and Crypto.com, as they prepare to not enter the market. They're already in the market, but they're adding on to the futures trading by trying to capture more of the American market with more regulated exchanges. Now, this is generally pretty good for long term, as there'll be more money coming to the market, and thus there'll probably be an increase in price following that. Next, we're also following Square changing their name to Block. Now, this is pretty funny. It's kind of like Facebook changing its name to Meta. It's changing its name to a more ambiguous term, trying to capture into the, I guess, cryptocurrency market. But you can look at this as big companies like Square and Facebook trying to enter or finding interest financially within this market. And this just goes to show that there's greater acceptance with large companies like this, and there'll probably be more companies moving into the cryptocurrency market very, very soon. Next is I just want to remind you that there is this new outbreak for the flu, and well, there's already been an outbreak for the flu, a second variant, right? But now there's another variant called this one. Well, if you have a look at how this correlates with price, we'll actually take note of the dates here. So this is pretty much, it was recognized around April to May. Take note of that. And this new one, is recognized on the 9th of November. So if we just have a look at the price really quick, I just want to show you how this correlates to whatever we've been seeing in price based off these variants. So if you look at around the April zone, well, 14th of April, that was the first time they mentioned the first variant, and the other variant was on the 9th. So if you have a look at that, hey, guess what that is? Well, what do we see here? So, well, of course, the very first variant was just the original flu, which happened over here. So let's mark it down. Yeah, you can just clearly see what happened on that day. So every one of these moves, let's see, that move is a 50% move. Nice. And then this next variant caused another 50% move, right? So if this next variant was to cause another 50% move, what would we see? Well, we would see something like that. So price around 34K US dollars. So do I think that's going to happen? Well, maybe, but just given the previous experience with these two sort of cataclysmic dumps, is that, well, we might see, well, 50% would be on the large end, but based off what we've seen previously, is we probably see less than that because the market has actually sort of gotten used to whatever we've found. However, I would bring to your attention that if we do see further downwards movement below, well, let's just draw a line here below this line. On a daily closure somewhere below this 53 or 52, then we may see further continuation downwards, probably to the 40s first and then to wherever. But we do see a lot of strong support based off moving averages that suggest that this won't happen. And well, let's say it does close below there on a daily closure and then it closes back above the line, well then therefore we probably will consider that that won't happen. Now moving back onto what we were talking about before, which is we're going to be having a look at some longer term analysis if we are close to a top or not. Now this is a website that I really like. I found on the internet, really. It uses 12 different metrics, all listed here. Below here is basically to determine where the top is. As you can see, 100 read is basically a top for the cycle. Currently, we are in the third cycle for Bitcoin, and we've seen the first cycle from 2012 all the way to 2013 and the second cycle from 2015 all the way to 2017. Now currently we are riding the 2019 to, well, probably 2022 cycle. As you can see, we did have a really high read earlier in March. However, we have come down from there and we are sitting nicely on the 57, which is pretty far away from the top. Right. Very good. So we probably will see this market continue and go on higher. As you can see, every time we bottom out, we go towards the top, and we bottom out, and now we are looking towards a top. So we are looking to continue rising in price. So Bitcoin especially will continue rising in price over the long term, over probably the next year, and probably take the rest of the cryptocurrency market with it. Now, I just want to remind you that this is the logarithmic growth curve, basically the price in logarithmic terms from $1, $10, $100, all the way up. And basically this shows the entire price of Bitcoin over its existence, ever since 2010, all the way to right now. And what do we see? Well, we're sitting right nicely beneath this midline here. As you can see, the top line is around $143,000. Now, where could we see it continue to rise? We probably see it up to 160 plus once we hit that 100 read on the CBBI, which is what I just showed you. Right now, if we want to look at current market sentiment, I like to look at the Fear and Greed Index, which has been very, very good for determining when to buy. Pretty much anything below a 20 read is an amazing time to buy, or even a 30 read. And recently we just did pop into the 21. So that on the 27th of November, if we want to have a look at what happened on the 27th of November, what can we see? Well, if we drag this line over to the 27th, we can see that we had that little dump here. And what was that? That was a great time to buy. And guess what? It correlates with this yellow indicator we have here. This is called the MFI, or the money flow index. And what can we see? Basically, on the second little peak here, whenever it comes back up like this, it forms a nice V shape like this, it means that we've bottomed out. And we probably won't see that price come back down to that level for the next few weeks at the very minimum. It did come back below here, but it didn't really break this region, which is where it imprinted the support. So there was a nice support here at the 30k zone, and it didn't break that region. So this is probably what I expect as well. Probably won't break that region unless we do come back up really, really high and then come back down and have another go, but that'll probably take another 2 weeks. And what can we see? Over the long term, we're just coming and following this trend. And what is it? It's basically like a channel. It's just a channel just going up, and we probably will see further continuation up, maybe some short-term downside, but I do think long-term we are just going to continue up like this, to upwards and to the right, pretty much. Next is our pure multiple indicator. I'm just flip-flopping back between here, but pretty much this indicator is basically a buy anything below 0.6. We recently did get one here at 0.56 on the 27th of June, but we really are pretty close to the bottoms in this region and nowhere near the tops of this region. Another thing is the pi cycle indicator. Now this is also a very good signal for basically tops, but also I've also found that this yellow moving average here, which is basically an average of the price, has been very good for showing support. And if we zoom in further to this chart, we can actually see we are actually hitting it. And where is this line currently? This line is currently around 53,665. So what do I assume from this? Well, if we go back to our price analysis, which is basically, we're having a look at this, and well, if it doesn't close below this price on another daily, well, then that means I probably presume that this is a great place to buy. And how do I know it's a great place to buy? Well, you can just compare it to what it's been doing before. If we have a look at this area, that was also a great place to buy. And guess what? It was here on the pi cycle indicator, right on the yellow zone. Now, what do we notice that before we see this massive run earlier in the year? We noticed that we found support here off this pi cycle zone and found support again. And then we had a massive run. So we found support twice before we had a massive run. And that's what we're doing again right now. So if we do hold this area right over here, we do presume to have another massive run, just like we did earlier in 2020. All right, so in addition, we've also got the MRVZ score. This is nowhere near a top as well. And furthermore, this 200-week moving average map, which is basically to buy whenever it hits that line there. We are pretty far away, but we're nowhere near in the red zone, which is the sell zone. And this is also looking very good. We've got an incline on the hodl wave, which is also very good for price action. This is the logarithmic curve again. And well, that's about it. So let's dive into the price action now and have a look on the shorter term time frames. We can actually have a look at the RSI here in purple. And what do we see? We do see some bullish divergence, right? So we see lower lows on the price action, and basically higher lows. Actually, no bullish divergence. We did get some bullish divergence on this drive, but it actually did drop further than that. Do we see any bearish divergence here? Well, if we look at that, that's pretty even. It's pretty even. Not really any bearish divergence right about now. Yeah, so looking fine. So I like to draw lines here, basically to show support regions. And guess what? We got some support coming in here. We had a bounce here, bounce here, bounce here, and well, here's a bounce as well. So these lines are really good. Whenever you see 3 bounces, it generally bounces again on the 4th time, and the 3rd time as well. If you want to draw some long-term trends, let's do that. So did see some nice trend lines going this way. Yes, so that was one. And what do we see? We see a nice bounce off this zone as well. So if we see another trend line like this, guess what? Boom. Right. Yeah, so it's less clear as the previous one, but we do see some general trend here. We see the top sides around this region, and we're seeing a nice bounce off this region as well. We had this off this line, and we had this off this line as well. And this was a much longer line, so we had a very strong bounce. It's just a retest on the RSI. We break beyond this resistance and turn it into support. Bounce off that, break beyond this resistance and turn it into support. Bounce off that. And as you can see, this does correlate very well in this channel. So I do presume that we probably will see upside in the next few weeks coming from this. So this would be an excellent time to buy right now. Okay, let's look at some Ethereum price action on the daily time frame. And what have you noticed? Actually, I've drawn some lines here, but I'll also draw them here. These are basically the Fibonacci extension lines. And what do we notice? If we draw it from the bottom to the top of this consolidation, well, what do we see? We see that we've come across the, I guess, the support region around the 0.5, which is the 41k zone. Now let's draw it again. Let's draw it for this one from the bottom to the top, right? And what do we see? We've come some support around the 0.5, so that's the 54k region. So I probably do expect this to hold based off this previous region of support, and that has been very good so far. For Ethereum, we do see the same sort of scenario. So this one bounced off the 0.3 of this consolidation, the 0.3, and guess what? We're bouncing off the 0.32 yet again off this consolidation. That's very good for price action. I do recognize that this is actually flipped, so this would be the zero. This is flipped because I flipped the direction on this, but yeah, it did bounce off this 0.618 version, which is, if you flip it, that's the 0.618. On this one is a 0.3, which is very, very bullish. So I do presume that as long as this region holds on a daily closure for Ethereum, we probably do see further upside continuation after a short-term pullback. Now, where could we continue off to? Well, the next region is around 53k. Oh, yeah, 5.3k for Ethereum, and we do see topside all the way up at 10k. So eventually, I think we do reach there. It's just a matter of when. And yeah, well, that's Ethereum for you. And I also do want to look at KDA, which is one of the coins that we are very bullish on. And guess what? We've also found a nice little bounce off our consolidation here at the 0.5. So we see this nice little hammer signal right here. And we probably will see a slow drift up over the long term. If we do turn on some of our EMA support regions, what do we see? We see some support coming off this yellow line, but this green line is also rising up continuously, so we might actually see it come down a little bit and then tap off this green line and then continue onwards and upwards. Now, if we go on the shorter term time frames, we actually do notice something pretty interesting. Not a good sign, but interesting nonetheless. We do see this descending triangle, which is typically a bearish formation now. So let's suppose this descending triangle breaks, right? Well, what do we see? If it breaks, well, then we will see continuation downwards to, well, that's not very good, is it? That's terrible, Jesus. Yeah, so, well, the target would be $6, but I don't think that, I mean, if it breaks this below and closes on a daily closure below this, we might actually see further movement down towards this zone. There's the $10 zone, but man, yeah, doesn't look good if we do that though. But we do see that if it does break to the upside, well, what can we assume? If it follows the rest of the market, which it likely would, we can see it probably tag around the top line again at around $28 to $30. So that does look very good for Kadena. And I very much do like Kadena. All right, well, thank you for listening to this little stream. And thanks for sticking with us through this market update. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a great and awesome day. And I'll see you next time.